Greetings, YouTube. Stephanie Jarvis here, your mushroom mentor. And today we're going to talk about mycelium. Word of the day is mycelium. All right, let's get into it. And don't forget to like and subscribe and ding the bell to get the whistles and enjoy the show. Okay, today's word of the day is mycelium. What exactly is mycelium? Well, the ancient Greek root translated into scientific Latin actually comes from the root mucus, not like mucous membranes, but let me spell it for you. Let me use a different color. Here, and then the root, I-U-M. So mucus in the ancient Greek means mushroom, and this root, ium, means aggregation. So it's like aggregated parts of a mushroom. If you want to really break down the ancient Greek into scientific Latin. So that is mycelium. So it is mushroom aggregation. What does the heck does that mean? That means this is actually a tissue type of the anatomy of the organism of the entire kingdom of fungi is made up of mycelium, which is the main actual body of the mushroom, and the individual hyphal threads, the hyphae is individual threads. So think of my hair here, this giant mop of hair. If I was a fungi, this would be my mycelium. And then the individual hairs would be the hyphae or the hyphal threads that then make up the mycelium. But if I was a mushroom, my entire body would be made up of mycelium, of individual hyphal threads that create this mushroom aggregation called mycelium. All right, so who has mycelium? Like I said, all fungi have mycelium. Some mycelium is actually created into differentiated tissue. So if you think of an actual mushroom, a cap and a stem, and the gills, all that is mycelium that is differentiated into different tissue types. The gills, the trama tissue, which is the inner tissue inside the mushroom. And we'll talk about that in another word of the day. And so the cap, the stem, the gills, all made of mycelium. The basidium are individual cells on the gills that then develop the spores. Not exactly mycelium, but it is derived from the mycelium. The mycelium then become different tissue types that then grow into different tissue types like the basidium and the spores. We'll get to that in another video. So who has it? All the fungi. Where do you find it? Well, in nature, you find mycelium everywhere. You find it in the bark of trees. You find it in the wood of trees. You find it in the roots of trees. You find it on the leaves of trees. You find it in the soil. You find it in wood chip mulch. You find it pretty much everywhere in nature. Every time you go out in nature, every time you walk across your lawn or across your wood chipped mulch area in your yard, you are stepping on mycelium, whether you know it or not. A dry, heated day, if you scratch that surface back, you may not see any of it because it does dehydrate during the summer when it's not moist. But if you have a watered lawn or if you have a watered mulch pile, or if it's a rainy season and you pull that same area back, I guarantee you you're going to find little white or little slightly yellow threads of material that are the hyphal threads or mycelium. It's really everywhere. And again, every mushroom is made up of it. So that's where you find it. You find it on the plants, on the trees, in the bark, in the soil, in your wood mulch. It's pretty much everywhere. What does mycelium look like? Well, that's where I come in, because I actually understand the anatomy of mycelium. Different species of fungi have different anatomy structures on them that are characteristic, and you can clearly pick them out on under a microscope. Not one species of fungi has exactly the same characteristics of the mycelium that it is derived from. So here I have a couple of plates from the lab just to show you some mycelium. Here I have, let's see if you can get a good focus on that. You see the white tissue as it's radiating from the center out. Hopefully you can see that through the ring light there. All right, so you can see here, number one, this plate needs to be chipped and it's overgrown on the plate. But besides that, you see here, and then in the center where it was chipped from another plate to here, and then it grew out, and you can see it's fluffy, and you can see it's kind of in rings moving out from the center, and you can see it's kind of like white little lines growing out from the center. And that is what mycelium looks like. I have another plate, and sometimes the mycelium, you could see over here, the ring light out of the way, you can see radiating up and out. And here you can see it's kind of just flat and fluffy. You can see here a clear division line. You can see the circles. I put two different strains on this plate to see if they would mate and go together. But you can see this line of division that goes from one side clearly to the other. And clearly these two did not mate. They made this line of division like your side, my side. So that is what mycelium basically looks like. It may look fluffier, it may look a little bit more like stringy roots out in nature, but basically it is white, sometimes yellow, sometimes whitish yellow, stringy material that is of the fungus. So why is it here? Why do we have mycelium? Well, here as humans or as plants, plants are made of these cells that create stems and leaves, and us humans and animals are made of cells that create skin and bones and muscles. Well, mycelium is what the fungus is made out of. It's very, very thin, single wall celled of these hyphal strands that make these mushroom aggregations under the soil, mostly, sometimes on the leaves and in the trees, on the bark, in the wood, etc. But I digress. Where was my thought? Why is it here? A mushroom is a shape. Not all fungi are mushrooms, okay? A mushroom is a shape, like a triangle, like a heart. A mushroom is a shape, cap and stem. Not all fungi are mushrooms, but all mushrooms are fungi, okay? So when I say mushroom, it's sort of like a slang term. I'm talking about fungi, but I'm talking about fungi in general because fungi are made up of mycelium. The main skin, bones, muscles, tissue are all made up of mycelium, which the mycelium is then made up of individual hyphal threads. Now, when you see an actual mushroom, a puffball, a truffle, these are the fruiting bodies of the fungi, of that particular species of fungi. It is like the apple on the tree. When you see a mushroom growing up out of the soil, that is like the apple of that particular type of fungi. And then the tree, the apple tree, is all that mycelial network, mycelium, that is under the soil. So when you're walking through the woods, you're actually walking on the soil, the humic debris from leaf litter, etc. And then the mycelium, which is the main body of the fungi, is roaming around, digesting and eating food. And the mushroom itself, the cap and stem, is the apple on the tree, is the fruit body. It's just the reproductive organs of that particular fungi, okay? So why is the mycelium here? Because that is the main body of the fungi. So let me show you a couple pictures. I did some really great scanning electron microscopy in my graduate program, and some hyphal threads, the mycelium, like I said, have different characteristics, and they can act differently in the soil depending on what they are trying to go after in terms of nutrients, okay? Because the mycelium themselves, the little individual hyphal threads, are single-celled, very small. They're penetrating out into nature, and out in nature isn't just soil and fungi. You have bacteria, you have nematodes, you have insects, you have other types of worms other than just the nematodes. You have all kinds of stuff trying to eat the fungi. So they have a lot of, this is one of the reasons why they're so medicinal for us, because they have all of these resistant proteins and enzymes within them to protect them, their little tiny individual cells. And so some mycelial threads, instead of just being one big long strand like that, may actually have spikes, may be really spiky. And that is to deter herbivory, other organisms trying to eat it. And you also may see that they have what's called septum. So most mycelium you see is just one big, long, continuous cell, and the nuclei can shuttle from one area to another depending on what the fungi needs. And also, we haven't even talked about whether it's a saprotrophic fungi or a mycorrhizal fungi, or what type of mycorrhizal fungi it is. And we'll talk about that in another video. But the septa, so if somebody comes along and eats it, it can just have a wall here and block off all those nuclei, and then it could start growing in a different direction. Also, which we haven't really figured out why, but I started to work on this in graduate program, is some mycelial strands have pores. I haven't quite figured out what the pores are. Here's a picture of mycelial strands with pores and mycelial strands with septum. Pretty cool stuff. There's some really beautiful anatomy in the mycelial strands. And particularly in the tuber species, it's really easy to see what species of truffle you have under the microscope if you know the mycelial anatomy. Whether the mycelial strand comes off the root, I'm talking about mycorrhizal fungi here, and then it makes an immediate 90-degree turn. That is very, very characteristic of some specific species of truffle. Others will come off and they'll have all kinds of branching patterns. Another characteristic of very specific species of truffle. Spores do the same thing. They have their own anatomy and their whole other anatomy. That's a whole nother conversation. But here we are talking about mycelium. So mycelium, who has it? Everybody. All the fungi. Where do you find it? Pretty much everywhere. In the soil, as I said, pretty much everywhere. Wherever there's nature, you will find mycelium. What does it look like? It looks really cool. Here's another photograph. And why is it here? It is the main body of the kingdom of fungi. Just like us animals, we have skin and bones and muscles. The fungi have mycelium. All right, YouTube world. Thank you so much for liking my videos. Please leave me comments of whatever you want to see. If you're really looking for good products for taking medicinal fungi, I have some really good links below. Okay, Host Defense from Paul Stamets is one I highly recommend. Getting the Fungal Pharmacy is a great book if you want to learn more. Links below. And please, if you want to talk to me, I have a 15-minute free phone call or Zoom call with you if you're interested in learning about how mushrooms can change your life. All right, everyone, please like and subscribe, ding the bell to get the whistles. Go be a fungi and enjoy the day.